Hi everyone, this is BMN 502, History of Buddhism, third week lecture. Today is January 25th, 2021. We are in the winter quarter. So as we have been progressing with the lectures, last 2 weeks, I'm sure you have seen the origin of Buddhism and the founder of the religion, the Buddha's life story and all that. And thank you very much for participating. And today, being the third week, the third lecture, we are going to focus on the formation of the Buddhist canon and also the Buddhist councils. You will be able to follow in this lesson, follow and learn actually the formation or the organization of the Buddhist scriptures into what you may call a Tripitaka, three baskets. And also in the Buddhist history, there were some councils, gatherings, meetings in order to preserve the teachings of the Buddha. So there are like 3 attempts in the known history, and we'll be focusing on those things in this lesson. So before we begin, let me remind you that after each lecture, you will be getting some assignment for each week. And I've seen that most of you have responded. According to the roster, there are about 100 students so far, as I came to know. But I haven't received many of your responses yet. So please submit those assignments as soon as possible. Otherwise, the issue is that you will lose the attendance. Attendance is one of the core features of this class, because you will be earning points towards your final grade by attending the class. Attendance is based on none other than doing the homework or completing the assignments. So please, those of you who haven't submitted your responses, please do it as soon as possible. And now let's get to the lecture proper today. And you saw in the last 2 classes, the textbook, you read 2 or 3 chapters, and then according to your understanding now, you know, the Buddha had a very long career in the sense that he had 45 long years of ministry. He had the opportunity of meeting a lot of people, and he was able to deliver his message, his teachings to many people. 45 years is a long stretch of time. And in the known history of world religions, there is no other religious founder who got this opportunity of having a long ministry of 45 years. So during that 45 years, whatever the teachings that he gave is, those teachings are really a vast collection. And you know, in Christianity and in Islam also, when we are going to talk about the scriptures of those religions, it is not that big, either Bible or Quran or something like that. But in Buddhism, you cannot say it's a single text. It's a library of text, I would say. So when the Buddha was alive, he had some discussions, some arguments. Some people came to visit him and ask questions. And in terms of answering those questions, or in terms of sometimes giving instructions, he had delivered a vast ocean of knowledge. And that knowledge, imagine if you collect all those things into one heap, it comes to about 55 volumes of thick books like these thick books, 55 volumes. So that is where the Buddha's teachings are organized or composed in those texts. So today's lecture is on those, how this, it is called Tripitaka. Three means, as in English, meaning three. Pitaka, Pitaka, Pitaka means the basket. So three baskets is called Tripitaka or Tipitaka. So in Tripitaka, as I told you, many volumes of books, but how come these volumes came into existence? How did they evolve from the teachings of the Buddha? You know, when he was giving sermons and giving instructions, or when he was having discussions with with anybody, whomever who happened to meet him, nobody reported those things. Nobody recorded those things. Nobody put them into writing. What happened was the monks, especially the personal attendant of the Buddha, his name is Ananda, and he got the opportunity of collecting all those things in his memory. So his memory was so good that he was able to memorize all those teachings that the Buddha gave to different people in front of him. And then what happened was, when the Buddha passed away, we were able to read it last week, when he had the parinirvana, or when he passed away, the question arose as to what we are going to, as disciples, the Buddhist students, disciples, they decided, what are we going to do with all these teachings? Now they are in many different places. Many different monks keep those teachings in their memory. And what are we going to do with this? If we do not collect them in an organized way, what would happen is we will forget it. Whoever who memorizes certain parts of it, with the passing of that particular monk, the teaching will die. Teaching will disappear. So as soon as Buddha passed away, the responsible monks, elder monks, especially monk, his name is Kashyapa, Mahakashyapa. In the text you will find it, the name, and that monk, along with 500 other monks, they are enlightened monks, enlightened, you know already, those who have achieved the goal of Buddhism. Those 500 monks got together with the patronage of the king at that time, Ajasat, rehearsed the teachings. They rehearsed in the sense they chanted them. It is called the first Sangiti, or the first council. Sangiti means they get together and chant it. Monks together chanted it. Chanted in the sense, some monk might ask the question, as far as you remember, what happened during this time, and what did the Buddha say? And then the monks answers to the question in terms of his, because it is in his memory. So the Buddha's teaching at the beginning was not written down, not committed to writing. It is actually written down in the minds of the monks, memory. It is called the oral tradition. It was transmitted orally. Orally means from the word of the mouth. You commit that to memory and you pass it to your disciple, your student, and your student keep it in memory, and then you pass it to the other person. Like that, it kept on transmission for nearly 400 years, I would say, about 400 years. And we will be seeing that history in the future classes. But for right now, what we need to understand is after the passing of the Buddha, just 3 months after the passing of the Buddha, monks got together and they rehearsed, they chanted the Buddha's teachings and organized the teachings in such a way that it could easily be memorized by the monks. This is a very important thing. In the history of Buddhism, this took place after 3 months of the passing of the Buddha, around the 5th century BCE. That means around 26, about 25 and a half centuries ago. And over there, the monks rehearsed all the teachings that were present at that time, and they organized it in they organized the teachings in 3 different baskets. That is why it is called Tripitaka, or 3 baskets. So they put the teachings, they organized the teachings in a beautiful manner. Because some of the teachings, these are let me tell you the 3, what are the 3 baskets. The first basket is called the sutra, Sutra, in Sanskrit. In Pali, it's called Sutta. So Sutta Pitaka, or the basket of the teachings, the discourses of the Buddha. So in the Sutra Pitaka, you find the Buddha's main teachings, his discourses, his sermons. Whenever he delivered something to somebody, in terms of having a discussion or an argument or an explanation, or in terms of giving instructions, all these things are categorized in the basket of Sutta, or Sutta Pitaka, or Sutra Pitaka. And in the Sutra Pitaka, this is very important area, because you find, if you want to learn Buddha's teaching or Buddhism, early Buddhist studies, you have to go to these texts. In the Sutra Pitaka, there are 5 collections. Some of the sutras, some of the teachings of the Buddha are too long. Sometimes it's like a regular book. So some sutras are fairly long. So what these monks did at the first council was they collected all those long length teachings. And there are like 32 long length teachings. And those teachings they put in one They collected in one volume called Digha Nikaya, long length discourses. Digha Nikaya, or the long length discourses in English translation. And over there you find 32 long discourses. They are just not a small one. They are very long discourses of the Buddha. And in likewise, there is another collection, another Nikaya called Majjhima Nikaya. Majjhima Nikaya means the middle length sayings. They are not as long as the Digha Nikaya or the long length discourses. And there are like 152 such sutras collected under the name of middle length sayings. The third group, the third collection is called the Sangyutta Nikaya, or connected discourses. There are many sutras, but they are not long sutras. Sometimes some sutra is like only like few lines. So there are many, 7,000 some sutras collected in a text called connected discourses. They are arranged in different topics in a beautiful way. So that's called Sangyutta Nikaya. And the fourth collection was the, sometimes the Buddha gave instructions in terms of numerical explanations. For instance, there are 8 things. What are they? And then they name them. There are 4 things. There are 5 things, like that in numerical succession. The teachings of the Buddha are arranged in numerical succession. So that is called Anguttara Nikaya. Anguttara Nikaya, or numerological discourses. That is the fourth collection. And the fifth one is called Khuddaka Nikaya, miscellaneous texts in different subjects, sometimes the prose and sometimes verse. So they are collected and saved in that collection called Khuddaka Nikaya. So there are 5 Nikayas. Nikaya means the collection, actually. 5 Nikayas where you find the Sutra collection, Sutra Pitaka. Sutra Pitaka could be divided into 5 texts. And those 5 texts that I just mentioned. So that's, don't think that this is a small text. It's very big collection. And that is where you, if you want to find out the Buddha's teachings on certain things, say about the karma or the nirvana or many other things, worldly things as well as other worldly things also. Those about meditation, all those things are collected, categorized in the Sutra Pitaka. That is the first basket. And the second one is called Vinaya Pitaka. Vinaya means the disciplinary rules. Disciplinary rules for what? There were disciplinary rules to be followed by the monks and nuns. So the monks and nuns, when to maintain the unity, to maintain the purity of the community of the monks and nuns, different rules, different disciplines were introduced by the Buddha in time to time. And all those rules, disciplinary procedures sometimes, they are categorized in what you may call the Vinaya Pitaka, or the basket of discipline. That is the second basket. And those 2 are very important in whenever you want to learn about the early Buddhist teachings, the development of Buddhism in the earliest strata of the Buddhist history. These two Pitakas are very important. And the third one is called the Abhidhamma Pitaka. Abhidharma or Abhidhamma Pitaka, the basket of Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma means the further teachings. Further teachings means monks, after listening to the Buddha, what they did was they organized the Buddha's teachings in a very technical way. In Abhidharma Pitaka, you find highly systematized, highly educated language. Not just like having conversations or discussions as we saw in the Sutra Pitaka. So, Sutra Pitaka, you find free delivery of teachings. But in Abhidharma Pitaka, it's not free and easy language. It is the systematized technical terms and highly psychological things. So sometimes the Abhidharma is translated into English as psychology. So highly psychological teachings, philosophical and psychological teachings are categorized or organized in that Pitaka, in the Abhidharma Pitaka. So all these three Pitakas together is called Tripitaka. Tripitaka or the Pali canon, or the language, in which language these were composed. They were not written yet, only in the memory. So how did they compose? What language? That is also a very important thing. Language is called the Magadhi language or the Pali language. So it's usually believed that the Buddha used that language during the time of the Buddha. And after some centuries also, the monks memorized these things in Pali language. So today, we find that Tripitaka existing in the world, and it is in Pali language. Pali language. Pali is the language of the Buddha, let's say like that. Language of the Buddha. So it is preserved in that way. So very interesting thing is, just after the passing of the Buddha, just like 3 months, 90 days after the passing of the Buddha, the monks took this bold step. This is a bold step in preservation of Buddhist teachings. To preserve, protect the Buddha's teaching, they took this measure to put the teachings in 3 different baskets. Why in 3 different baskets? In order to keep the teachings in memory is easy. And at that first council, what they did was they assigned certain monks. You have to memorize these texts. Say, for instance, Digha Nikaya, the long length discourses, you have to memorize these texts. And then after you have to teach it to your students. And then your students, they have to carry it in their memory. So this is oral tradition. Nothing was written down, just kept into memory. And what they did was, they usually get together in every fortnight, once in every 2 weeks, and they maybe one monk keep reciting whatever he has memorized, and the other monks kept listening to it, and they if the memory tallies with them, if there is no mistakes or if there is no problem in the memory, then they accept it as true. Likewise, all the texts they kept memorizing and passing it to the next generation. So generation after generation, the memory took place, the texts were kept in memory, and it went through around 400 years, around 450 years. The monks were able to keep them in memory and pass it to generation. And now you may ask the question, when did it come to writing? When the Tripitaka was committed to writing? That happened actually after like 450 years later. That happened in Sri Lanka. Now we are talking about the history of Buddhism in India. But, after like 215 years after the passing of the Buddha, there was a king called Ashoka, and we will be talking about him in the future classes. And during that time, he was able to spread Buddhism into different parts of the world. So Sri Lanka being the nearest country to India, the nearest island to India, Sri Lanka got the opportunity of receiving the Buddha's teaching in early period of the history. And in Sri Lanka, in the first century BCE, the texts were committed to writing, put into writing, because of there was a famine, big trouble. The monks were dying, so they decided to write down the texts. So that was like 450 years after the passing of the Buddha. We will be focusing on that thing later. But for now, what we need to understand is that during the long career of the long ministry of the Buddha, whatever the teachings that he gave, all those teachings were kept in memory. The monks kept them in memory, in oral tradition, oral transmission, and very after just the passing of the Buddha, 3 months after, the monks got together and rehearsed all these teachings and arranged these teachings in such a way that it could be preserved for the future generations. And as we see it today as Tripitaka, or three baskets, the structure of the Tripitaka was designed just after the passing of the Buddha, 3 months after the passing of the Buddha. So in Pali it is called Tripitaka, and in English translation we call it a canon, CANON, canon. So Pali canon, it's called Pali canon. Original teachings were in Pali, so it's called Pali canon. Pali canon is the earliest source that we have today to learn about the teachings of the Buddha. The original early teachings of the Buddha are collected, preserved in Pali Tripitaka, or three baskets. And so that is the formation of the Tripitaka. It did so. You might not think that Tripitaka came into existence right away. No, it was a long period of time. Just after the passing of the Buddha, the following centuries, about 2-3 centuries, monks were collecting all these things, and certain teachings were elaborated, as in the Abhidharma Pitaka, the further teachings, the psychological and philosophical teachings. Monks were able to develop the teachings in such a way that it came to a philosophical system. And now, so the Tripitaka as we have it today is not a overnight happening. It is about 300-400 years of development, evolution. So the formation of the Tripitaka took place about 350 years, 400 years. And it came to a closed canon when it was put into writing in Sri Lanka. So that's the long history of formation of the Pali Tripitaka. And so Buddhists are really proud of having these type of texts preserved. It is because of the monks' dedication, their sacrifice, actually. They sacrifice their lives in order to preserve the teachings of the Buddha. Preservation of the teachings of the Buddha was so important because by preserving the teachings only, the next generation can learn it. The next generations can learn it, study it, only if it is really protected well. So that task happened during the early history of Buddhism. And that process is called the formation of the Tripitaka or the Pali Canon. And the very significant thing in the Buddhist history is it is because of the preservation of these the three Pitakas or Tripitaka, the three baskets, that we are able to, even today, after 25 centuries later, we still can go back to the earliest strata of Buddhism and learn, study, do research, and all kinds of things because of the preservation. Don't think that during these times it did not change. Changes are normal in any tradition. But still, the earliest strata, you can dig into the earliest strata and see how the original teachings were. So Buddha's disciples, in that sense, the Sangha, what you may call Sangha, the community of monks and nuns, they took extra effort to safeguard, to protect, to preserve the teachings. And that effort is understood as one of the gigantic achievements in Buddhist history. Because remember, this is not the time where you had computers and all that. Even not writing. So monks were able to memorize, keep them into memory. And it is very important. Even today, I'm a monk and I've been a monk for now about 41 years. And when you become a monk at very young age, you have to memorize most of the texts. Even today, the tradition is there. You are not going to memorize the whole Tripitaka. In fact, there are some monks who can memorize and who are quite capable of memorizing and keeping that into memory. But in my case, I cannot. But some monks, there are some monks even today, they learn these things by heart. They chant, they make the chantings and all that. So you have to memorize these things. Sometimes big texts, I myself can keep on chanting some whole texts because we memorized them when we were very young. Young time you can keep anything into memory. So that way, that tradition is still there. Even today, a young boy comes to the monastery and want to become a monk. Very first thing that he has to do is to memorize certain texts. In the Theravada tradition, it is a very important feature that you have to memorize certain things. So that memory, keeping to memory, it's called the oral transmission. So the texts were transmitted orally by memory, through memory, from generation to generation. And that is the formation of the Pali Canon or the Tripitaka. And because of this preservation, as I told you, even for the future generations, they have the opportunity of studying going back to the very origin of Buddha's teachings and looking at them and studying them, doing research and all kinds of things. So understand that formation of the Pali Canon took place. It started just after the passing of the Buddha, and it continued for 300, 400 years. And finally, it became a closed canon. Closed canon means after that you cannot add anything. It became closed when it was written down. So long stretch of time. That is the one of the beautiful things when you learn about the history of Buddhism. And I wind up this lecture right now, and I will add another clip later. So thank you for listening. And also, let me remind you, I will give you an assignment for this week. You will get it in email. Please read the text that we are based on this text. Actually, we are progressing in this class. So, with regards to the today's lecture, you have to read the chapter 5. Chapter 5 starting from page 69. Page 69 to 75. Not many pages, but just read it, and then you will be able to find the new words that we came across in the lecture, and about the first council. And there were two other councils that we will be paying attention to them too. But in this part, we only pay attention to the first council. First council means the one that had just after the passing of the Buddha. So, and that is the first portion of the lecture today. Thank you for listening.